Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Sunday and happy Mother's Day. This is a new episode of the Right Info Podcast Show with your host, Kane Twan speaking. And tonight, I would like to address an issue that's important to not only myself, but everyone else. And that issue is more Americans are joining the cashless economy. In less than a decade, the share of Americans who go cashless in a typical week has increased by double digits. Today, roughly 41% of Americans say none of their purchases in a typical week are paid for using cash, up from 29% in 2018 and 24% to 3 years earlier. Now, the portion of Americans who say that almost or all of their purchases are paid for using cash in a typical week has steadily decreased from 24% in 2015 to 18% in 2018. 18%, that is. I apologize, sorry. In 2022. Still, roughly 59% said that their typical week, at least some of their purchases are paid for in cash. Now, Americans with lower incomes continue to be more relevant or reliant on cash than those who have affluent lifestyles. 3 in 10 Americans whose household incomes fall below $30,000 a year say they are using cash for all or almost all of their purchases in a typical week. That share drops to 20% among those whose in households earning $30,000 to $49,000 and 6% among those living in households earning $50,000 or more a year. Not even so, growing shares of Americans across income groups are relying less on cash than in higher earners. Now, roughly 6 in 10 adults whose annually household income is $100,000 or more, which is 59%, say they are making none of their typical weekly purchases using cash, up from 43% to 36%. Now, that's amazing. Now I'm trying to kind of figure that out myself. And there are also differences by race and ethnicity in cash use. Now, roughly quarter of African Americans, 26% and 21% of Hispanics adults said they all use their purchases in a typical week paid using cash, compared with 12% of whites who say the same thing. Now, it's less for whites when it comes to using cash, but it's more for minorities like African Americans, Asians, or Hispanics. And even though cash is playing less a role in people's weekly purchases, the survey also finds that a majority of Americans do try to have cash in hand. Now, about 58% say they try to make sure they always have cash in hand, while 42% say they don't really worry much about whether they have cash or not. That'd really be interesting. I'd have to worry about having cash anywhere I go. I don't want to walk around with nothing. Cards are good, but having paper cash is better. And, like I was saying, they have cash on them since there are other ways to pay for things. These examples have shifted slightly through the years. Now, my opinion on the situation. Now, if I have cash for something, I'm going to use it. If I don't have enough, I'm not going to use it. I would probably use a card or whatever, but I would be careful on using cash and a card. Don't want to use both at the same time, because when it comes to a card, you might get a bill in the mail. It's astronomically high. And cash, you might wind up broke quicker. So what you don't want to do is spend buying a lot of things with both assets at the same time. Just split it up. Some with probably credit, some with cash. Even it out. That's what some people do. And if you even out your money carefully while spending something, while buying something, you may find yourself in a pretty good situation. You may handle your money real good and stuff. And there are economists who say the same thing. Some have views are like some that are different. But all at the same time, you have to be careful with your money, whether card or cash, or if you're cashless, don't have anything at all. You have to try to at least figure something out. You got to have a card, like a credit card, debit card, whatever. Long as you have enough money on both of those cards or one of the other cards, you're good. But long as you don't spend too much. Like I said, balances out. Be careful. Paper cash, that's the same thing. Just have enough for yourself and, try not to buy what you don't need. You know, buy what you need, not what you want. Your needs are more important than your wants. Your wants can wait. Your needs are way more important. Like, you need to pay this bill. You need to put food on the table. You need to, pay your rent. You don't want to be behind in it. You need to get some clothes. You want to get some new stuff. You don't wear around the old stuff all the time. And that's very much kind of like the examples that I'm expressing right now. So with that being said, I was just wanted to talk about how cashless some people are. If you don't have cash, you have cards. But if you have cards, be careful with what you have on your cards and how you're using it. But at least keep cash in your pocket. That would be real good. And with that being said, this is the conclusion of the Right Info podcast show with your host, King Twan speaking. I just wanted to give you an example, a full explanation on this podcast about cashless, situations. More in an economic, financial sense. Being smart, think smart, not harder when it comes to money. That's all you got to do. And with that being said, I'm saying good night, everybody. Have a great weekend, rest of the weekend. Mothers, have a great Mother's Day, and talk to you all later on. Goodbye and good night.